Good afternoon. This is the Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts. We're going to have a different program today because our host, Ruby Shivers, a little under the weather, but she left a message to you, our viewers, and she says that COVID is real. I repeat that, COVID is real. And so take care of yourself. COVID is real. Stay healthy so you can vote, which we'll be doing in less than a month, really, and vote your best interests. Okay? With that said, Queen Ruby, how you doing there? All right, so we're going to do the best we can to carry on the tradition that you've laid in this particular program. And again, I want to, before we get into the program, just again, Queen Ruby, thank you for this platform. Thank you for this opportunity. Also, I want to thank Sheila Brown Bird, who's the producer of this particular program. And also, I want to thank Norm Bradley, who's the engineer and also the studio owner. So to put this together. Also, I want to shout out to the home team, namely Lula Salvador and Juanita McClure. Okay, these are people who really help us put this program together. So again, we're really happy to be with you today. And again, we're going to continue to bring you the information that we know that you need. You know, as African people here in America, we have a very serious challenge to survive this this madness. And also, I think one of the ways we can survive it is to go back to our roots, the roots of our culture. So today, we'll be talking about culture, but we'll also be talking about excellence, because we are people of excellence. And really, today, we're going to be talking about excellence, but it will be excellence outside of the classroom, because we know that we have schools, but the first school for our children is the home. And so basically today we'll be talking about excellence outside the classroom by developing the habit of literacy. You know, literacy basically is reading and writing, but we're going to take it a step further. We're going to get a little deeper into it. And today I have with me my good friend and co-host, Ronald C. McCrae, who is, I call the gentleman poet. And he's been here several times, and every time he comes, he brings more. But this is very special because he gets a chance to really delve into this topic, but also to help us appreciate his poetry even more. So before I bring him on officially, I want to just sort of outline what we'll be talking about today. So basically, we're talking about developing the habit of literacy. Now, with any habit, it works best when you do it on the regular. So when you talk about the habit of literacy, we're talking about this is something that you do every day. We're talking about Monday through Sunday. Okay, so we know that school is usually Monday through Friday, but in our home, because we are our first teachers, we want to do 7 days a week. So I'm saying that what we want to do every day, and we'll break this down further when I turn over to Ron. And so again, we want you to do 5 things. We want to do 5 things every day. Now, when I say 5 things every day, it's 5 things Monday through Sunday. Every day, we want to do these things, okay? So those who are out there, get your pen, get your pencil. I want you to take some good notes because we want you to really get this information. So again, 5 things every day. Number 1, we want you to read. Okay, read something. Read a newspaper, read a magazine, read a book, but get in the habit of reading. Number 2, write. Write a post, write an email, write a note, whatever, because I feel that reading and writing go hand in hand. So number 1, read. Number 2, write. Number 3, talk. I think the way we digest what we've read and what we write is to talk about it, okay, to get it out there to the social media, keep it going. Okay, number 4, listen. I always said that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because he wanted us to listen twice as much as we talk. And again, this is something important. And number 5, view. When I say view, watch something that is going to help you enhance your intellect. This weekend I was with my grandchildren, my twins, and we watched the movie Shirley, based on the life of Shirley Chisholm, who was the first black woman to run for president. And it's so funny, although this is a historical film, there's a lot of parallels between what's going on yesterday and also today. And so they were able to look at that. So again, view something. I mean, you have a family viewing night. So again, when we say develop the habit of literacy, we're talking about you, and we're talking about what you can do in your own household. So every day, read, write, talk, listen, and view. And what say you, Ron McCray, about this outline that we're developing today?
First, I'd just like to give thanks for this opportunity to Ruby Chavez as well as yourself. You know, it's always a pleasure coming on. I think this is a platform that is so needed on a regular basis. So truly, I give a lot of blessings to Ms. Ruby and the whole entire team.
Yes.
Along with what you just indicated, which is true, you know, and I added something to that without going overboard, and that is always read something as it was expressed, no matter what it is. Big, small, whether it's crazy, whatever, but always read something.
Yes,
that right there keeps the mind sharp. Right thoughts and ideas every day. As long as you're able to think and your brain is operating and you're functioning in a normal capacity, there's no reason why you cannot write about something of thought. And talk. Have a conversation, storytelling. You know, whether it's your friends, your neighbors, strangers, business, whatever, but always have a short conversation. That in itself also adds to the read and the write, because you continuing to add to the educational aspect of who you are. Listen, in all thy ways, get an understanding about something. You know, we may be confused about something, but at least ask the question, how do I get an understanding, whether you agree or you don't agree? And so view, observe all of your surroundings to a sense of some perspective. You know, too often, too many are walking around looking at them cell phones and not paying attention.
That's right, not paying attention.
But you have to pay attention to your surroundings. All of those things come right back to what you just indicated when you gave the introduction with all of these 5 points, because they all tie in. Read, talk, listen, view. All of those are extremely important to the individual's mindset.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, we talked about this before, you know, when we talk about education. Education, I know for myself, a lot of people think education is just found in the classroom.
Right.
But the thing is that education is a lot broader than that. And one of the, you know, I think we really owe it to ourselves to gather mentors to ourselves.
Right.
And anybody who reads, you've read someone who's made a difference in your life.
Right.
I remember when I first encountered the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read the back of the book and it sort of shocked me, because what the author was saying, and this was Malcolm X speaking, he said, by the time you read this book, I will probably be dead. And it shocked me because it was the autobiography of Malcolm X as told to Alex Haley.
Right.
So that meant that he probably dictated to Alex Haley, and Alex Haley wrote it down. But the thing that happened, because I read that book and it made such an impact on me, is that Brother Malcolm became one of my mentors. And I like to, this is a quote from the book, and it talks about education. And I just want to read this because I think this is going to propel our conversation further into this whole concept of developing the habit of literacy. And it says here that education is an important element in the struggle for human rights. It is the means to help our children and people rediscover their identity and thereby increase self-respect. Education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Okay? Prepare today for tomorrow.
Right.
Those who don't prepare, they are at the mercy of just everything.
That's right.
You know? And I think, again, and I like always talking to you because, you know, you have a vision. You have a vision for your life. You have a vision for your art. And you have a vision for your poetry. And, you know, last time we spoke, we talked about your new book. Yeah.
You know, if I may,
yes,
in
please.
short, as you indicated, education is the foundation of humanity. And under that umbrella, we ask or we seek wisdom and knowledge. You see, we often talk about how smart you are, but
Yes.
you
Yeah,
ask
what
a
does that
smart
mean, right?
person that doesn't have any wisdom or knowledge.
Yes.
But wisdom and knowledge will really showcase everything you need to at least search out and understand in life
That's
about yourself,
that's,
starting
that's a
with
good point.
yourself
That's
and
a good
everything
point.
that was brought to you as a child, teenager, middle age, or whatever. But it's about wisdom and knowledge. You may not, let's just say you're in school, you may not get a good grade,
Yeah.
but have you learned something?
And that's a good
And
point.
that's the
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. And sometimes that's more important than a good grade because I know when I was teaching, sometimes we would have what we call a spelling test or a vocabulary test, and I would give the students like 20 words, and they would study these words, and a lot of them would get good grades. Some of them would get 100. But if you ask them next week what these words meant, they wouldn't remember because they
Exactly.
just studied just for the test.
That's right. And that is so important. I'm glad you raised that because
Yeah.
that's one of the key foundation.
That's right.
You know, understanding the words or the history of the story is learning the inception. Once you go back and learn the inception of something, then you become wiser and you develop more knowledge of some things. You know, and that's what's important. You
Yes.
know, learning what these words mean, where they come from. You know, what culture do they represent? That's what's important.
Yeah, it's true. And again, and I think a lot of times, if we're not sort of geared into what's around us, we take things for granted. And I like your book because the subtitle of the book is Self-Reflection on Hidden Treasures. And a lot of times when we, as we go through life, we take things for granted. And I like on page 36, you have a poem. And sometimes we take things for granted to the point that we don't even see them. You know, these things are right in front of our face, but because we're so distracted that we don't really see what the beauty of it. And again, and in the poem, you really talk to the holistic approach to learning and living. And when we say holistic, we're talking about mind, body, and spirit. And so would you please share with us this poem on page 36 of your book is called When Flowers Speak.
When Flowers Speaks, and it's kind of centered around women in a sense, but it really gravitates to everyone across the board, no matter how you look at it. So let me just read a little of this. The femininity of a woman lies in the art of her gracefulness, like a ballerina dancing her way through moments only described by her sensuality, gazing from one masculinity to another without disrupting the story told. When flowers speak, their soft, tender, mellow, sweet, gingerly voice soothes like the aromas of essential oils. Her tone and mannerism ascends as the air blows across the stage, and her statue mimics a fullness of time, expressing a language to transform a culture of rich minerals. That in itself is so important to really think about it.
Yes.
You know, and again, I start out with femininity, but all of us, male and female, you know, we have something feminine about ourselves, and women have something masculine, but it's identifying the parts.
That's right.
And which part you play. Because as I said here, as like a ballerina, she's dancing and gazing across from one masculinity to another.
That's right.
And so it's from a man's arm to another man's arm, from your father, your brother, your uncle. That's what's important.
And I'd also like in this poem, I want you to continue it because you talk about Queen Sheba and you talk about the mind, body, and spirit that I want the audience to really to hear.
Absolutely. The mind, body, and spirit becomes a culinary guide to a new creation of art, cascading the tender touch of her toes as she moves about, and the sounds isn't heard, but quietly resting like butterflies, seducing the soul. Her beauty surrounds the fragrance of atmospheric pressure, leaving one in a hydrated coma. When flowers speak, their voice calls freshness, bringing inspiration to understand the art of the body movement, contouring an energy, gleaming with an aesthetic and communicating freedom. The pristine beauty of black femininity displays a sound structure within her soul, a representation of pearls, sapphires, rubies, diamonds, and gold. Crowned like Queen Sheba, a natural state of God's creation. Since the beginning of time, her masculine side brought stability to a black man's kingship, saying, Lord, Lord, my Lord, how fairest art thou. Her movement brings forth gentleness, and her soft aquatic tone waves across the earlobes, whispering words of love. In her greeting, she mimics maturity, like the virtuous woman of Sarah, Hannah, Mary, Martha, Esther, Ruth, and Deborah. Strong and bold, when flowers speak, femininity smiles, tranquility infused in the art of my soul.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thought. And again, sometimes we take the flowers for granted.
Right.
Sometimes we take for granted the beauty of our woman.
That's right.
Looking at other women, and when I was growing up, it was so interesting that the standard of beauty
That's right.
was blonde and blue-eyed
Right.
in a certain shape
Right.
and a certain weight.
Right.
And I look around my neighborhood and I look around my family, and none of these women fit that
Right.
that level or that definition of beauty.
Right.
And so we had to develop our own definition of black beauty.
Right.
Because again, at that time, when I was growing up, when you said black is beautiful, people look like you're crazy.
Right.
How could black be beautiful? Because white is beautiful. White is the standard.
Right.
And I think again, when we look at the beauty of our women, and you talk about the different women's names, but I love what you say here. You said her soul is a representation of pearls, sapphires, rubies, diamonds, and gold, crowned like Queen Sheba.
Right.
These are things that, that are valuable.
That's right.
And all we have to do is look, but we have to look from the eyes of our culture,
Right.
not from the eyes of what they call the dominant culture. And
That's
I have to question that, because I don't know how dominant it is, because we influence so many things in this particular world, But I want to just go to the topic here. The first thing here is reading, and I just want to read one thing, and then I want to go on to writing. But here, this is from a book. One of my favorite books is called a Black Parents Handbook to Educating Your Children Outside the Classroom. And this is a brother named Baroti K. Kafali. And this book, this book was really written a long time ago. As a matter of fact, it was written in 1991. But it's a book that I read, that I have in my library, because I know for myself this is a book that I find of value, of great value. And the older I get, the more I realize that it is so. And so I just want to read a brief passage from this about reading. And Brother Baruti says here that reading is one of the most fundamental things that we can teach our children. It should be encouraged in the homes each and every day. Through reading, a whole new world is opened up to our children. Every aspect of life is contained in books. For example, if someone wanted to learn about the history of ancient Kemet, Egypt, the best way to learn about it would be to actually go there with a knowledgeable historian. However, if this were not practical or possible, the best alternative would be to read about it. This holds true with practically everything imaginable. All one has to do is pick up a book and begin to read. And that'll take you to many, many different places. And as a poet, I'm sure that you can relate to that. Because, as a poet, you can sit down and you can be anywhere. Everywhere.
You never know. And just to go back just a half a step,
yes,
one
please.
of the importance what you just read is so true, because when you look back in history, how many at that time, matter of fact, the whole culture of the African descent who was brought here was not able or allowed to read. And even during the transition in time, they had to sneak out to learn how to read. They used signs and
Isn't
whatnot.
that
So you
something?
look at all the way up until the 20s or 30s or 40s, when it started to gain its a place in time.
Yes.
So the importance of reading, learning to read, storytelling, is so crucial. And for myself, you know, in a conversation, I could pick up a word, I can listen to something, a conversation, whatever it may be, and then I'll build on something around that. And that's what's important, because as I just read one of the pieces, when flowers speak, you know, you walk down the street in the park, no matter what you do, you know, plants in your home, flowers speak. They have a harmonious feeling that so many really take for granted and not pay attention to when flowers speak. They're really talking to you, no matter what you're going through. The feeling and the stress, emotional, flowers speak, and that's what's important.
Yeah, it is important, you know. Again, so we say how reading is important, but also writing is important, because I know for myself as a writer, sometimes I'm not even sure what I think until I sit down with it. Because when I sit down and write it, it makes it a lot more concrete. It's like when we go into a business situation, we sign a contract.
Right.
And the contract should be more binding than just our verbal, because that's something we can go back, because you said here as such and so that you would do this and I would do that.
Right.
And that's where we come together. So sometimes the writing makes it real. And so we talk about reading, we talk about writing, but now talking. And I know a lot of us like to talk, but my whole thing is that, and I tell my students when I was teaching, I said, you know, it's good to talk, but I think that you should speak with reference. And when I say speak with reference, what I mean is that you have your ideas, you have your thoughts, you have your feelings, but how can you back it up? Is there something in a book that sort of makes what you say even better, even more concrete? And I want to go back to this book by Brother Baruti and talk about talking and how to talk with your children. And he says here on page 61, he said, in addition to inquiring into your child's day, it would also be good to have a set time when you simply talk and have conversations and discussions with your children. For example, instead of watching television at a particular time could be used to have a family conversation or discussion about almost anything. This way you can gain further insight as to what is on your children's minds. These sessions would be good to discuss subjects such as AIDS, sex, pregnancy, racism, homelessness, or anything else in academics, current events, or social concerns. And so I know in my household, especially my first marriage, we had what we call quiet time.
Right.
Quiet time is that there'll be no TV watching.
Right.
You know, we can read in silence if we like, but a lot of times they would like to have conversations. They would like to what we call family discussions. And again, this is important because, you know, we have to let people know what's on our minds, because we can't read people's minds.
That's right.
You know, I can't read your mind. You can't read my mind. And for many relationships, that's why they fail, because we don't talk to each other.
Right.
And if we talk, we don't get really deep into what we really mean.
That's
you
right.
know, I mean, how many times, you know, one of the jokes about male and female relationships is that we as men, you know, we talk to our women and we ask them, "Are you okay?"
Right.
And she says, "I'm all right."
Right.
Now, we know that is not a response.
Right.
You know, what do you mean, all right?
Right.
Okay, we go further and further, and then we get to the truth.
Right.
You know, and sometimes, because if we don't do that, it's a boomerang effect.
That's right.
Because you ignore that, it's going to come back next week.
That's right.
You know?
And that comes in with listening. You know,
Yes, sir.
Listen to what's not being said and listen to what's being said. And as you just indicated, you asked what's wrong, and she responded nothing. But see, there's a whole lot of something if you just listen without actually getting into a battle.
Yes,
But once the wind and the tone and the emotion settles, then he or she will tell you everything.
yeah. Because there's something behind the nothing.
Exactly.
You know, and if you are a man in a relationship with a woman, you have to understand that there's different cues that she gives you.
That's right.
That you best pay attention to. And Ron, I like going back to your book on page 13, because, you know, again, I think that our art expresses our reality. And again, I think a lot of times art is personal because it comes from a place deep within us. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes I'm not sure what I think until I sit down with with a pen and a paper or my laptop, and I actually probe my mind. So in your new book, you talk about listening, and there's a poem that you have entitled "Listening," and that's on page 13.
Right. And that's one of your points, listening.
You better.
Listening. Listening to the art of soundless movement, feeling never felt, but the senses are the membranes of our awareness. Listening to the metaphor for all of nature's creation brings about alertness, warnings for whatever is about to appear before any action is needed. Without hesitation, a response rushes towards the understanding of what is taking place. Quite often a percentage of people respond before an alert, as in the quality of hearing before listening to or listening for.
Yes, yes.
Listening to is when a person hears and interjects on something they believe what the other person is about to say. Listening for is when a person seeks to get an understanding of what is being expressed for clarity, whatever the subject matter is referring to. Too often people jump into the express lane without paying attention as to where the speaker is going from. Most important communication is how one learns to pay attention when conversing to any engagement of a dialogue. Rudeness is a platform for disaster, where arguments break out and all hell breaks loose, leaving the most valuable accident that one may occur. Friendship leaves death at the mercy of dark attitudes. Listening is a gift, learning or a practice way to tune into a delectable conversation without being harsh, insulting, or disrespectful. Hearing shows the inability to manage self-control, to slow down and allow the speaker to complete the narration of the subject matter before interjecting without looking both ways and before crossing into someone else's lane. Listening. What is the foundation of the word? Giving attention to understand what something means. Give sound mind before interjecting. Hearing noise without purpose, scattered without directions, and no response to the clear understanding as to the point of interjecting without substance. Are you listening or hearing? A self-analysis reflecting to distinguish the differences between which one. Think about the question before responding.
I was going to give you one of that because you really broke that down to the point, and I love what you say here. You said listening is a gift, learning or a practice way to tune into delectable conversation without being harsh, insulting, or disrespectful. And you say here, think about the question for responding. And, again, we're talking about listening, but there is such a thing as active listening.
That's right.
Because a lot of times we listen because we just want to jump in and say what we want to say. But it's best to listen, get the full value of what the person is saying.
That's right.
And then respond. But sometimes before the person even finished their thought, you jumping in there.
Exactly.
Somebody, no. Let me finish.
Exactly.
We're so quick to put our thing in there, not realizing that sometimes it's good to just be quiet.
That's right.
Just be still. Just listen.
And it comes back to when flowers speak. Just listen to the sounds of quietness.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand. Yeah, flowers do speak.
That's
the wind speaks.
That's
Silence speaks.
That's right.
Really, and we don't understand that. And the last point here, in terms of our whole discussion of developing habit of literacy and doing the 5 things every day, and the last one, the 5th, is view. And I want to go back to the book that I referenced before by Brother Baruti, and he says here, and this is on page 38, because we're talking about images. you know, and a lot of times we see images of ourselves on TV that really don't have anything to do with the real people that we are, and sometimes it's distortion. And he says here, most importantly, I can't stress enough that your son should have maximum exposure to our black shining prince, Malcolm X, who exemplifies manhood. Your daughters should have maximum exposure to Harriet Tubman, who exemplifies womanhood. I can't emphasize enough what the influence of Brother Malcolm's life did for my personal growth and development into manhood, which includes becoming a husband, a father, and an educator. And so what happens, the example of Malcolm X, I know one of the things that really stuck with me in the book, and we'll talk about this some more when we get to the whole thing about vocabulary. But I remember in the book, he talks about taking a dictionary
Right.
and reading it from A to Z.
Right.
And what happens, he read that to the point where he would go read these words, read the definitions. And when he was released from prison, when he went to Elijah Muhammad,
That's right.
met the minister, became a minister himself,
That's right.
and became a great debater. But he was so powerful because he had this great vocabulary.
That's right.
And again, when I say view, not always viewing something outside of ourselves, sometimes viewing ourselves. One of the things that Sister Ruby does, which I love, is that she asks us to look at ourselves as kings and as queens.
Right.
And if we look at that, we see ourselves in a new way, in a different light.
Right.
And so we're not going to be misled by false representations of ourselves.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so with that said, I just want to do a recap, and then I want to go on to vocabulary. So again, developing the habit of literacy. So every day is a habit. So you want to do it every day. So every day read, every day write, every day talk, every day listen, and every day view. And if you do these 5 things, you do it for 7 days, you'll definitely be a different person. Now, when I used to teach at the colleges and universities, the first day of class, I would ask the students, I said, who wants to get an A from this class? Right. Everybody would raise their hand. Everybody would. I said, let me ask you a question. Let me ask the question again. How many people here want to get an A in this class? Right. Some people raise up both hands. Yeah. And I said, let me tell you something. Okay, everybody has an A, but you have to maintain that A. Right. Now, by you skipping classes, skipping homework assignments, that A goes down to right. B, a right. C, a D, or whatever. And so what happens is that you want the A, and you can get the A. Right. But you have to develop the habits that are going to get you the A. So if you develop the 5 habits of literacy, you will develop not only a better student, but I think you become a better person as well. And so it takes us back really to the basics, because we talked about the whole thing about when you go to school, right? The first thing you learn is what? The ABCs, right?
ABC.
And so basically what we want to do, we want to sort of transition, because we want you to really get the most from our joining together. And this is where the podcast becomes a pod class. And we're going to talk about vocabulary probably in a way that you never heard it spoke about before. Because, again, we want you to really go away every Monday with something that you can use in your real life. And so we're going to start this second part of our program today. We're going to talk about vocabulary. And I want to start with going back to my brother's book here, because, again, he talks about vocabulary in a way I really hadn't thought about it. But when I read it, it's something like, a revelation. Right. Sometimes when you read something, you said, you know what, I didn't think about it that way. Right. And when what happens, it gets to the point where you look at the poet in the poem and you say, you know what, what is my thought in this? Right. And you read it, and maybe you might want to write a poem. I think one of the things, because you have other books out, and one of the books that I want to really to bring to people's attention is this book right here. And this book is a beautiful book because it really talks about, it's called Pathway Through Life's Journey. And basically it's a journal where you can write your own thoughts. So as you read the poems, you can write your own poem, or you can write an idea that may develop into a poem. Because I know for myself, sometimes I'll get an idea, but it's not fully developed. So this has to marinate. And so we want to go a little further into the whole idea of education. And we want to go into a poem on page 3 of my brother's book here, and it's called Season of Change. And it goes back to the basics because it's Season of Change, ABCs.
Absolutely. And in short, what you just expressed, everyone may not be articulate in all words or the dictionary or whatever book you may read, but what's important is to be able to have a conversation with somebody by listening to.
Yes,
and
please.
so no matter what somebody is expressing or the words they're using, what's important is understand the subject matter.
Right.
What are they talking about?
Right. Yeah.
And so here, what I wrote in reference, centered around this, season of change. And season of change is every microsecond. Time you blink an eye, something changed. So there's a season. And so here in the season of change, the ABC. A, alert. Animals, creatures have a sense to be alert in the event of a response. Awareness is the observation that something is about to take effect. Assurance is having the confidence to move without fear and having stability to say, yes, I did it without hesitation.
That's right.
B, and I'm just kind of skip, no, let me go back. Ability is the mindset to know that whatever has to be done at all costs, try it and never deny yourself of giving it your best shot. Agility, strength, is a mobility to drive towards a goal set forth to conquer the vision and dreams, a fulfillment of joy and happiness. B, building character, a self-awareness of who you are, whose you are, and your place in life, understanding your environmental circle. Beware not to let rude intruders distract you from manifesting all possibilities to bring to life the hidden treasure deep within your soul. Do a self-examination, asking yourself, who am I and what is my reasons and purpose? Boldness, knocking down obstacles that may hinder your way through life's journey. There's no straight path, but follow your conscience according to your belief in a higher power. There is no future, there is no failure if you trust and never doubt. Faith is key. Bind your resources, prepare yourself to carry a load, and know that the burden will not be weight that will not weigh you down. Believe that all things are possible if you stay focused. Don't look to the left nor right, but meditate on the prize you so desire. Meditate, pray earnestly. Seek, you shall find. Knock, the door will be opened. Ask, and it will be given. See, conquer all challenges that come before you, and be prepared to address the seen and unseen, the expected and unexpected circumstances. Strength is the motivational factor to shield off freeloaders trying to take the opportunity for granted. C, care for the less fortunate and those you are trying to help mend their own life. Well, we all need help in some way or another. Communion, fellowship with others, show love and affection to the less and despair. You never know what someone else is going through. Share a moment of joy and laughter. Happiness is key to well-being. Be a creator of the heart.
Yes. Again, that says a lot, but it doesn't say it all. You know, I think one of the things as I read your poem, I always think in terms of it's almost like poem counter poem, because you write one poem and it might inspire me to write a poem, and we could go back and do this all night because we just talking about A, B, and C, and the thing is, I think that I want those out there to understand that the ABCs is the basics of education, but it can also be the basis of life. First, when you talk about ABCs, when you look at what I would call the ABCs of success, and again, thinking about success as something that is possible for everybody, and again, a lot of times we think that it's for someone else, it's for the elite, it's for the privileged, but no, once we understand what success is, once we find what is that end goal, because your success might not be my success. I was reading a book entitled "The Things That Money Can't Buy," and one of the things they were saying in terms of one of the things money can't buy is mastering your craft, whether your craft be writing or anything else. Mastering that craft is a source of wealth. It's also a source of fulfillment. And so, as I respond to my brother's poem here, and he talks about his ABCs, well, I want to share with you my ABCs. And this could be a subtitle, The ABCs of Success.
That's right.
And so when I look at the ABCs of success, the A stands for awareness. Okay, you have to be aware of what you want to achieve before you can achieve it. If it's sort of vague in your imagination or your mind, you'll never really get a hold on to it. So, and we're talking about success, the A is for awareness. Okay, B is for belief. You have your awareness, but you have your belief. Do you believe you can achieve this? When I went into teaching, I had the belief that I would be able to do this, but I didn't have what they call the credentials. I didn't have a master's. I didn't have a PhD, but I believed because I was in many classes and I was bored to death by teachers that were very boring. And I said to myself, I know I can do better than this. And so I went into teaching after I retired as a college administrator. And I taught and I retired at 57 and a half, and from 57 and a half to 69, I taught at 2 universities and 2 colleges. But I believed that I could do it, although I didn't have any role models. And even when I retired, there were students who came up to me and said, Professor Benjamin, you're the first black professor I ever had. And when I was involved in it, there were very few black professors that I could really mentor with. And so a lot of the things I learned about teaching was from reading books and from reading all the books. If I have a secret power or a superpower, is I read the books. Sometimes I would read the books to the point where I'm reading things and I would get a vocabulary book and it says 30 days to a better vocabulary, and I would read that in a week. Right. And to this day, I know words, Ron, that I can't even use. Because if I use, you won't know what I'm talking about. Right. You think I'm trying to show off and whatnot. Right. But the point I'm making is that I think that the secret of my personal success was the fact that I was really, I was afraid. I was afraid that someone would ask me a question and I wouldn't know. So I would overstudy. I would over-prepare. But in the back of my mind, I believe that I could do this. And C, A is for awareness, B is for belief, and C is for commitment. Okay, commit. I ask my students, and I'm asking you, are you interested or are you committed? Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you're interested, you say, I want to write a book. You have interest. Okay, that's beautiful. But are you committed? Because I know for myself, I've written many books. I've published many books. Some books I published, my name on is not on it, but it's a book that I actually put together. But this is the test of whether you're committed or you're interested, okay? I remember one night, man, I sat down, I had a good idea, and I'm on my laptop, and I'm smoking. I can't believe how brilliant I am. Because I'm cooking, man. I'm cooking. It's everything is just going good, man. And I'm over pleased with myself. And then I'm messing around and I touched something, right? Mm. I don't know what I touched, and all that I had written had disappeared. What you think I did? I mean, after I finished crying, I said to myself, that writing is rewriting.
Right.
So, so I rewrote it. I wrote 100 pages and more, but I learned to save my work. But the point I'm making is that if I was interested, I would say, okay, well, look, that's lost. I'm not going to go back to it.
Right.
But because I was committed,
That's right.
I went back to that laptop and I wrote those 100 pages plus more.
Right.
Because I was not just interested in being a writer, I was committed. And for me, in this time of my life, I'm writing is not a hobby. It's for me, it's a lifestyle. Everything I do in the course of the day, every day I do those things. I read, write, I talk, I listen, and I view because it's part of my lifestyle as a writer. And the thing is that I'm not interested in it. I'm committed to it. And I think that really for those who are out there, what are you committed to? What is your ABCs for success? And the beautiful thing about the ABCs, as we go from A to Z, everybody probably has their own word. I ask people, what is your favorite word? And everybody comes up with a different word. So my point is that you can't go wrong in learning your vocabulary. And one last thing before I turn over to my brother here, when I was tutoring students in different subjects, I would say, really, if you want to do well in a subject, learn the vocabulary of that subject. Whatever that subject is, learn the vocabulary. Because you go to the back of the book and they have what they call a glossary. Right. And a glossary tells you these concepts that you will encounter in this particular subject. And so if you understand that vocabulary, you'll be able to ace that particular subject. But at this particular point, we're almost to the end of our program. But what say you, Brother Ron? You are someone who I really admire because of your creativity and also the fact that anytime I need you to come and help me, you definitely have to ready. I don't have to worry about you being prepared. What is this state? Is the thing that says if you're ready, you don't have to get ready, right?
That's right.
And this brother is definitely ready, Freddie. I can call him. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I thank you, public.
It's always a pleasure. Just in short, right quick, because one of the more important things, what you just said about being committed, writing and rewriting, because the best of the best, excuse me, the best of the best authors, painters, whatever, singers, they go back and rewrite what they either lost, what they thought, because what you think doesn't always come out on paper until you write it down and go back to read it, and then you realize.
That's right.
And that's where the editing, the format, and all that comes into place. But everyone has a story, no matter how you look at it. It's not about how well you speak. It's about you telling your story. Because a child could write a story, even though that child's in grade school or elementary, but the child is telling the story. So that's what's important. Tell your story. And that's what that journal is all about, telling your story.
This journal.
One of the things too, I want to take a minute, if I may. For example, I just want to read this short paragraph. Revitalizing the youth from a cultural perspective. This is encountered with all of us. It doesn't matter how young, senior, or whatever, because all of us have the youth inside of us. That's and right. We're all looking to tell our stories, to learn from, to listen to. And so revitalizing the foundation of our youth's mind from African ancestral, African Americans, a deep-rooted perspective. Historically, the educational system has not employed the rich truth of history in the curriculum studies from kindergarten through to high school, an intentional failure on the part of the so-called inclusion of society of America. Unfortunately, the community in African American culture has not mended their resources such as education, money, and leadership to better our culture, our future seed. There is a gap that must be reunited with our past. Our ancestors did not ask how smart you were. They said, come here, do this, and you learn something. Long before iPhones, computers, satellites, or mechanical devices, there was the mind that saw semicircular, fully designed sculpture in such a way the most creative genius could not duplicate the exact in or out. It's only one of its kind, and we must revisit the artist who designed it. And that's the power up above. God, Allah, I am that I am, that so many may identify him as. Do you think? Thinking is the energy that turns the engine. How do you think? Now understand its function, fast or slow. What do you think about? The world is vast. Travel it, discover the unseen.
That's right.
And that's what's important. That's what this segment is all about. That's what the creation of this segment, this podcast, this platform has been created for all of us.
That's right.
And it's
That's right.
about learning, sharing, co-hosting, hosting. It's about getting the word out. And that's where, as I was thinking earlier coming here, is the wisdom, the matriarch of wisdom.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
Ruby Shivers.
Yes.
But she could not have done it by herself.
That's right.
She had those around her. It was a short village, and that's what's important for all of us.
Yes, yes.
And as the professor here, as a good friend, he always put me on the spot. And I always say,
And he loves it. He loves it.
always be ye ready, because you never know when you might be called upon. And that's what's important. And just like a child who raised their hand, answer that child, because you never know what they have. Ignore that child, and you really scarred that child. And I say child in a sense, not only in physical age, but also as adults, because we all have that child within us.
Again, you really pinned it, because, again, going back to the whole concept of the child, I think the way that we really preserve ourselves alive in passion is to keep the child alive within ourselves. Keep that sense of wonder. Keep that sense that, wow, that's amazing. Now, I think sometimes we get older, right?
That's right.
And we forget to have fun. We get cynical.
That's right.
So that's no big deal.
Right.
That's no big deal. I mean, it's not like it's Disneyland or
Right.
that kind of thing. And I know for myself is that even though I'm of age, I still have expectation, man.
That's right.
There are things that I still look forward to. And that really gives me a sense of, I'm still alive.
That's
right. I'm still alive, and I'm still doing it. Because one of the things, and as creative artist yourself, it's so funny. You've done 2 books that I'm aware of, okay?
Right.
And the 3rd is the journal.
Right.
But I know, and this is the sweet thing about it, for me and for this brother right here, the best is yet to come. There's other books I will write. There's other poems that I will write, and I don't even know what those poems are, because a lot of stuff is marinating in the back of my head.
Right.
With a writer, you understand that you're always writing.
That's
Because
right.
even if you're not putting things on paper,
That's right.
it's really in your mind. And that's why for an artist, sometimes the best 2 times to write is when you first wake up and sometime before you go to bed. Because sometimes in the morning, everything is clear. At the end of the day, you put everything behind you, and maybe you can look at something else. And so what happens is that we talk about developing the habit of literacy, but really I think it's really developing the habit of life, because some people are not living. In the New York Times, I get the New York Times every Sunday, and they have in the Metro section, they have this section where they follow a person from morning to night, what they do in the morning, what they do in the evening. And I'm fascinated by how people live their lives, how they spend their time. And I know for you and myself and anybody who's creative, you want to be productive. You want to be productive. You want to say, you know what? At the end of my day, I have something that I can talk about. I have something I can share. And I want to go toward the end of this program, and I want to go back to your book, because you have this one poem that I really, I really like a lot. And it's called Curator of the Heart. And a curator is someone who pulls different things together. Now think about a museum. Think about a theme, and think about how the museum director pulls these photographs together or these artifacts together to actually make a point. And so we want to move to the end of our program with this poem from a book. And again, this is a book that is relatively new, and it's an archaeology cafe where poetry comes alive, unearthing hidden treasures deep within you. And again, this is on page 29.
A curator of the heart. A curator mends patterns through the lives of others, patterns that are woven in with unique threads that only the curator knows the ins and outs, twists and turns. A curator is an artist who crochet in such a way even the unseen eye cannot master the skill of each movement. They are one of a kind. The colorful knitting changes the directions of one's emotional state of depression, loneliness, sadness, and just a moment to reflect on the positive outcome of how the sun shines each morning. One wakes up and smells the breath of life, air. God is a creator of life, mending souls, renewing our spirit, and walking with us each step we wake up, moving forward. There's a promise inscribed stating that he will never leave us nor forsake his promise to all his creation. When God created his prized possession, he carefully examined his product, ensuring that it was well with his soul. An artist is skillful in their mastery of designs through a contour that even the finish of the unfinished is revisited before it's released into the atmosphere of everyday living, feelings beyond imagination. When was the last time your smile curated someone's sadness into a sincere package of hope that having faith is a substance we gleam about, an unexplainable joy that came when least expected, jolted by a bolt of energy, bursting in all directions, rejuvenating a mind-blowing herbal cure for life. Be a curator and see in someone's heart and feel the solar energy circle around you. Just smile. You never know when you might need a curation in your emotional soul.
Yes. Okay, so I think that says a lot. And again, before we leave you today, just want to, we talked about books. Okay, this is one book I think that you should read. Okay, it's the 1619 Project. And this book, like many books by black authors at this time, is what they call a banned book. They don't want you to read this book. I wonder why. Mm-hmm. And this book is not just history, but it's also poetry. There's also essays and that type of thing. And so I want you to check that out. Also, a lot of people say, well, I don't have time to read books. Well, you know what? I can help you. There's also magazines. Okay, Essence is still being published. Right. Believe it or not, okay? And because of that, you really don't have an out. You can do that. Also, I want to just reach out to our audience, and people have called in. Lula Salvador, she's watching. Dina Robinson, good evening, family. I'm listening. And Dina says we need to listen and wait until it's our time to speak. Speaking of turn is disruptive and disrespectful. Robert Caberstock, we're watching. Ruby Chavez, the queen. I'm enjoying the dialogue. Thank you, Ruby. You made this possible. Ruby Chavez also says, doing a great job, my kings. Right. The village is teaching. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really beautiful to hear that from you out there, because we do it for you. We do it because we know that these are things that you really need to experience. And again, please, if you're serious, if you're committed, not interested in what we have to say every Monday, and it's from 4 to 5. Like I said, every Monday from 4 to 5 live, but then on YouTube forever. And again, and I ask you, I can't really stress enough, please press that subscribe button, because if you press that button, what happens is that whenever we do a new program, it's going to pop up automatically in your feed to the point where you can really keep up with us, And again, a lot of times, we talk about books, and a lot of our young people, they're really addicted to different shows like the Power Universe and the different gangsters that they encounter. But, you can also read a book. Like, for example, this is a new, he's not so much new because he's been out for a little while. It's a brother named Eric S. Gray. And he's, as a matter of fact, he's really hot right now. He has about 4 books out as we speak. I had the pleasure of reading some of his earlier work, and And what happens is that I do a lot of book reviewing. And I wrote a book review for him, and he actually reached out to me, and he said he really liked the book, and he encouraged me to also do other books. And so on that particular note, would you want to say something in closing? We have a few minutes.
I just wanted to just say this in short, in closing remarks. A mind is a terrible gift to lose when it's in your control and guardianship. Once it is gone, it cannot be restored, reclaimed, or rebuilt. The power of the mind is a universal phenomenon. The imagination far outreaches any human comprehensions, yet studies are still on the table for understanding. Please do not lose it, use it, search it deep within your brain to the highest glory and discover a world you cannot explain.
Brother, thank you so much. I'm going to give you that. And also, I want to thank you for watching, and get well, Queen Ruby. Thank you for this opportunity and this platform.